Hello everyone. According to United Nations, the term person with disability refers to any person that cannot provide for all or parts of it that has a normal individual or social life because of a congenital or acquired physical or mental handicap. Disabilities are therefore divided into several categories, but one thing is certain. There is discrimination against people with disabilities, and they are constantly subjected to prejudice. Racism is indirect, and it is often discussed in pity, regret, or the feeling of superiority. Especially, we unfortunately live in a society where it's very common people to get bullied, and I guess we all have a that situation. We may rarely hear someone get attacked because they are disabled, but how many times, directly or indirectly, disability could be treated by the social environment as second-class citizens? And as we can all consider, bullying can not only appear in the form of violence, physical or verbal abuse, but it can be seen also at our everyday life as they get underestimated. Especially in today's society, who bully people for stupid reasons that they can't change and they haven't decided for them. Growing up with a brother with intellectual disability, I face the fact that we are all races deep inside us, and racism is getting expressed out of very small things. Most of the times, during attacks against my brother that I have attended, a lot of people were seeing my brother getting bullied, as these attacks happened at the end of school almost every day. But a very small amount of them did something for that, as they were more frequently sensitized only when the attack contained verbal abuse. I felt, and I still feel guilty, because I needed to stop something to stop this, although I was at a very small age, and in fact, I couldn't do anything. One day, my mother went to the police to take action, something that she did very often. It is worth mentioning that none of the times her effort had results. That day, she went to some of the people that attended the attack to ask for some documents. One woman said to her that she was the one who said to the bully to go away to help him, instead of helping my brother that was getting bullied. This situation can clearly depict the society's attitude towards people with disabilities. Deep inside us, as I said before, we are all racist. And now it's time for me to explain with an example. How many times when we want to joke with someone who hasn't understood something completely, or when we want to say that he's stupid, do we use intellectual disabilities to characterize him? The answer is very often. Thus, the racism and discrimination faced by people with disabilities is discussed and not expressed in the way that it is seen against other population groups. Maybe it does not appear in the form of violence, physical or verbal abuse, but rather in the form of indifference. Here, I must refer that before I decided what I wanted to talk about, I said with the members of the club that I wasn't feeling very comfortable to talk about this. And then someone shared that this problem continues to be a problem, and basically it exists because no one is talking openly about that. If you Google bullying and people with intellectual disabilities, you will find a lot of articles with titles such as how to create a safe environment for your child with intellectual disability so as not your kid to get bullied. To that, I must answer that the problem is that we treat the people with intellectual disabilities like they are the problem, instead of educating ourselves and the next generation about how bad racism is. Racism is not a subject that we can be taught at school, but a value that we should instill to our children from a very young age through our example, of course. It is true that the legislative framework has improved significantly compared to previous decades, as every business is required to include at least a 10% with employees with disabilities. The problem of disability is a political, social, and deeply philosophical issue. It reflects in all its splendor what society we have and what society we want. We should realize that there are no perfect or imperfect people. All of us are people with special needs and abilities who can build a society that will have at the center our diverse needs. It is therefore an obligation of all of us, regardless of whether we have friends, relatives, or a partner with disability, to respect and above all, to defend the rights of this population group. This is why we must not turn our backs on them or be indifferent when we see their rights being closely infringed. The next time you just go by without complaint, just think about how much you contribute to the difficulty of your fellow citizens' lives. As you normalize discrimination, regardless of whether competent authorities do their job, you become part of the crime, and it is at least safe to assume that we live in a civilized society. We must educate, we must respect, and people with particularities are like everyone else, and they do not need compassion, but equal treatment. We have to support people who face racism and disabilities. We have to support. We have to educate our kids about how bad racism is and about disabilities. And as I usually say, attacking to people with disabilities is the lowest display of power I can think of. Thank you.